Somebody asked a question.
Yes,
I know we're jumping through topics and things, but
yeah, please.
It was something you said the other week that I've been thinking about a lot, about how you set up a mix where you, and I'm going to say what I remember it, but maybe talk through it. Talking about the person asked about vocals. How do you mix vocals, background vocals, that sort of thing? And what went through my head was vocals and low end, which is sort of how you described it. For me, it's vocals and drums, which is sort of the same thing. But I think of the relationship of snare and the high end of drums with the vocals as well as low end. How do you is that still how when you're setting up a mix? It's vocals and low end? It's what do you have an order? How do you conceptualize it?
It's a great question because every mix is different and every engineer will say that. But it usually is different. I've 4 songs yesterday. I don't think I started with the same element on all 4 of those songs yesterday. So let me think back to yesterday. Yeah, the last song I did yesterday was the most fun. And it was a sample that had basically everything in it. It was a full sample and sample flip with kick, 808, snare, hi-hats, 808 cowbell, and vocals. That's pretty much it. So the first thing I did on that was turned everything down 6 dB. And I gave myself headroom from the rough mix and how loud the rough mix was. The rough mix had a crazy energy. I know the producer, he's a great friend of mine, and I know what he wanted out of me. So I gave myself headroom and I turned the kick up. So maybe everything went down 6 dB and the kick went back up 3, right? So all of a sudden that kick's hitting harder than his was in relation to the rest of the record. And then you have to worry about how to rebuild the energy and the high mids and all that density and compression that was happening from a over limited mix.
Sorry, so that's very interesting. You basically, here's your, let's say 10 elements, and you bring everything down and you go kick drum. So it fucking slaps.
So now the kick drum slaps
and then you're going to kind of build up from there.
In relation to everything else, and then I get to rebuild that. Now, that's not an easy win. It's very hard to rebuild in a super dense track. This was not a super dense track. Well, because the way that a million parts are hitting a limiter, the whole glue can fall apart. If there's only a few elements, it's less reliant on that limiting. So it's a bit easier to pull down. Think about it this way. If you're pulling down 6 to 10 dB outside of a limiter, you're revealing all the... I don't want to be a dick. All the moves that weren't made, all the problems in the gain structure, in the part relations and the arrangements, right? You're revealing so much. So I recently got a mix note back saying, it doesn't feel glued anymore. And I'm like, well, my thought back was, it doesn't feel as glued like yours was, because you didn't program it to feel glued. Your programming, your arrangement is not, it's not glued. And I'm trying to re-glue it.
Is that a demoitis? What up, Justin? Is that a demoitis thing, or is there something, or is it something that is exciting that's happening by crushing it? I mean, I've definitely had many experiences with both.
I think it's both. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is that you have to rebuild it, meaning so I have to be listening and A-Bing with the rough. I think Jason Joshua did this thing on Mix with the Masters recently that said he only listens to the rough once, and it's like in his brain, and that's a talent. Dude, proud of you if that's the talent that you uphold. I don't have that talent.
I don't either.
At all.
By the way, I believe he does have it. I just don't.
I do too. I do believe that. It's insane. I actually thought about it yesterday because I just watched that Mix with the Masters, and I thought, okay, I basically have the intent of what this rough was, but now I'm going to turn everything down and start over. And I thought Jason Joshua's head. It's like, oh wait, he's never going to listen to this again. But I did, and I listened a lot, and I A-B'd, and I'm making sure that every nuance that was Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, see, I told you about Kean. You and him get along.
That's hilarious. I don't agree with you. There is a lot in the rough mix that is important to maintain in order to make.
I love you, man. Shout out, Kean.
People. Shout out. So, but in a less dense, let's go back to this sample track that my homie Alex produced. It's easier to turn it all down when there's minimal elements, so they're hitting the limiter more individually. They're not reliant on the thing next to it in the frequency spectrum also hitting at the same time. So the feel is then decided on by the producer and their intentions, not a built-in plug-in tool that is determining the feel. That's what I'm trying to get at. Right. I don't really know a better way to say it, but limiters over-determine feel most of the time in a rough mix. So when I show people ABs, most of the time, like friends that come up and they're like, "Oh, that song, like, we just, just show me an AB." Like, it happens every once in a while. I don't mind pulling up a thing. It's harder to do that online just with artists. Like, they might not be cool with you doing that, but with a homie around, like, just whatever, to a degree, obviously. And they're like, "Oh man, it feels different. It feels better. There's more space between the groove. There's more of a groove. It's more wavy. There's more of the notes I'm getting back in real time are more feeling notes. More not like, oh, it sounds better. It's like, I don't care. Like, your rough already sounded good. Besides over dense high mid, like ridiculous distorted mixes." It's all subjective what sounds good. And I think in that high mid area, I think there's an objective, like, if it hurts you too much, and not like a metal record kind of turned up in headphones hurt, but it's just distracting from the emotion of the lyric. If you're doing a ballad and there's 3.5K screaming at you plus 17 dB, that's not gonna. No one's gonna be able to connect. It's gonna be super intrusive. OG Volta, no limiter to the end. That's a sweet thought. I mean, that's a thought I had like a decade ago. And you're killing it. I mean, we talk every day. You're killing it with your no limiter to the end. In the production, I think in the mix, that's harder. I would still say in the production, it might be nice to have one on for certain people that don't have proper monitoring where they can get their system loud enough, right? A lot of the times you're putting a limiter on to get more level. You should just turn your volume up to get more level. And sort out loudness in the end. So I think that's kind of where I don't fully agree with the no limiter to the end, because you might need a little bit, but I would say if we're going numbers, I'd never go below -2 on a threshold. 4 max, but 2 really.
What about the just...
like when I get...
Go ahead.
Sorry, when I get a mix in and the producer says, "Oh, don't worry, there's not that much on the mix bus," and then Josh is prepping it, it's a Pro L2 at the threshold's -10, you're like, wait, what do you mean not too much? Do you understand what that's doing? And no, it's not the same as me just turning everything up 10 dB. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So you go, sorry.
Where are there creative advantages to just smashing things on a limiter when you're making a beat? Or, I mean, if it's changing something dramatically in a sonic way where it's changing the relationship with the transients and things like that, how do you then think about reconstructing that in such a way that you get some of that effect? Because there's times when I'm swapping out drum sounds and I forget that the limiter's on there, and all of a sudden I've got a new snare drum that goes, it's like 10 dB louder, but because it's going into a limiter, it has this cool, like, exciting squished effect where it just distributes the transient.
But what you're doing is you're answering the real question. The question is, why are you doing it again, right? But
not even why am I doing it. If I get to a result that I'm just like, this sounds dope, I don't know how I got here. There is no why. It's just what it was.
Yeah.
How do you go about reconstructing that?
Again, that's yes. That's ear training and that's practice. And Josh and I, Josh is here working on the rig. We were talking this morning about a rough mix that we got in recently that was just so smashed, and it wasn't musical. And I wrote an email to the artist with my first pass saying, "Hey, just letting you know that I don't really know how to mix like this rough mix. This isn't my style. Just being really transparent about how I'll never be able to mix like that.
Yeah.
It was just so loud. It was like an open ballad with a piano and some basic drums. It was 8 elements, and it just sounded like there was 600.
Yeah.
It was madness sounding because of limiting. The sustain of the piano was exclusively coming from the over limiting on the bus.
Wow.
So then when you take the over limiting on the bus off the piano, it's like really short release.
Right.
That's not cool. Like, there's nothing about that that's vibe. If you want that piano to sustain and be full and bodied and lush and long, make the sustain on the piano longer, or limit the piano by itself to bring up that sustain. Why are you relying on the entire mix bus to do that, right? So to answer your question, if you love the way that this loop and this snare drum that's super loud and it's like hitting the limiter or the compressor and making a move, that's tight. No one's arguing that that's not vibe, and you don't have to make sense of why that sounds cool to you. That's taste, right? That's not what I'm saying. Is an over reliance on it on a bus or a master. That it's not on the individual sound designing of that shape and that part.
Figure out how to achieve these things on an individual basis rather than just smashing your mix into a limiter and relying on the glue.
Yeah, to be honest, it's laziness. It's laziness, and I know this to be the case. I've done it when I'm up late and I need to send in a songwriting demo to the A&R, and I've just clamped the limiter down to make it loud. I used to do that like 6, 7, 8 years ago, and I didn't do it as bad as other people because I am inherently an engineer, but I would go further than I normally would just to make some glue vibe. But I would always intend on reducing that later, and now I just wouldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's laziness, because a lot of the times, again, in my position of getting stems, I mean, people don't even know how to send the stems at all levels. They don't even know how to export with their processing on or off, and then I'm still waiting 2 weeks now for Josh to get the proper stems from someone that's a A-list producer. And it's like, are they busy with something maybe bigger? Like, there's obviously reasons why this stuff happens, but to rely on one plugin, one tool to give you all of that character,
yeah,
it doesn't sound like a good idea.
Yeah.
Sounds like laziness.
I feel your passion.
It sounds like lack of
I really like it.
You what?
I like your passion.
I mean, this is what I deal with on a daily basis, right? So I think we talked one week. I have a pretty good batting average for getting approved mixes. I think last year I had 2 that didn't get across the line, and so far halfway through this year I have 1 that they went.
How many songs did you mix last year?
384.
That's a lot of fucking songs.
A lot of songs. 384, and 2 didn't get used. And they were on the same album too. So I think they were both on the same album. Anyway,
you want to name drop it? Which album?
Louth.
Okay.
I think I mixed 12, got 10 on the album. Yeah.
Oh, Evan, as a good question, are there examples where you think hyperlimiting works as stylistic choice? Absolutely. I think you're saying that too.
Yes, of course. Again, on individual elements and smaller groups of things to create that vibe. So this is what I was gonna get at too, right? So this is my daily basis. So when those songs don't work out every time, it's because the rough mix was so loud. They're always above -8 LUFS songs. Like, I don't know how to mix like that. I don't know how. I used to, back when I was listening to Skrillex all the time. I would go hotter than that, and I can make it feel dynamic. I know how. I don't like it. I don't think that's how you translate the message of the song the best most of the time. That being said, I think it's tight if you want an overcompressed rock and roll drum sound and make your drums pump and dial in that release and get that push, and I'm down with that. Don't put it on your mix bus. Do it on your drum bus. And then figure out a way to commit that and make it work on your stems properly before delivering it, or send screenshots with what it's doing so I can remake it, or so someone can remake it, so you're not putting them to a disadvantage.